Well, thank you all for being here today. We are very excited to be here and be part of the conference today. I'm Sue Campbell. I am the Deputy Director at Maine, and my pronouns are she, her. So today we're going to sort of highlight a variety of either programs or resources that we have available. As we talk about building inclusivity, we work with youth of all ages, so from elementary school through the ages. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Maine, we are based in Rockland, and we serve LGBTQ youth across the state. This is me, Deputy Director Maine. And so Maine's mission is to build welcoming and affirming communities for Maine's LGBTQ youth. As I said, we're based in Rockland, but we are a statewide organization, and we are the only statewide organization that focuses exclusively on LGBTQ youth. And we are proud to say we are celebrating our 25th year anniversary this year. So we're pretty excited to be here doing things. So some of the risk factors, these are just a few key things I wanted to make notes about for you around LGBT youth here in Maine, that we actually have 1 in 5 of Maine's teens that identify as LGBTQ, or 20%. And our youth are, have very high rates of discrimination and violence, lots of mental health concerns because of the discrimination and violence. Lots of suicidal thoughts, substance use, and isolation has always been a factor for our youth. Even when they are in space with other people, they often don't feel as though they belong. This pandemic has made things even more difficult for them. And they are 2.5 times more likely to have 4 or more adverse childhood experiences. This data comes from the 2019 Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey, which is a survey done in the schools every 2 years, normally in February. Because of the pandemic, the Maine CDC pushed it to October for 21. And so hopefully we'll be looking at data post-pandemic here pretty soon. But Maine's approach, we have a 4-tiered approach to the work that we do to support, educate, and empower LGBT youth. And the first tier is about building youth communities and connections. And we do this through a variety of direct youth programming. We have a layered approach to our programming so that the programming content that we deliver is designed to work with them developmentally over time, helping address their social emotional learning and other pieces of education that they need. And so we have, right now we're running 3 weekly online groups. We have a 9 to 12-year-old group. We have a teen group, which is our 13 to 17-year-old group. And then we have our emerging leaders, which are a 16 to 22-year-old group, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit more detail a little bit later here. We see a little over 1,000 youth annually directly through our programs, and also then service thousands more throughout the schools in the state as well. In addition to our online programming, when things are looking better and we can get back to some in-person programming, we'll continue on with our weekend retreats and our Rainbow Ball, which is a program where we bring together about 200 youth and their adult advisors from across the state for a weekend of education and learning. They get to have a big dance on Saturday night and a talent show on Friday night. And boy, don't they all have a lot of talent. So it's a pretty awesome event. And then our second tier is about supporting parents and families. About 40% of Maine's homeless teens identify as LGBTQ, and about 40% of youth in foster care. So it's really critical that we help provide resources and supports to parents and families so that they have the resources and tools that they need to be able to support their youth and keep them in their homes. We run a online parent group that meets monthly. We do a lot of family connecting. We have families that have youth that are younger than what our youth programming is, and in addition to families that are working with youth of any ages that want to connect and talk with other families. And then we do a lot of one-on-one conversations and consultations with parents and families as well. Our third tier is about creating welcoming and affirming school districts. Our youth are in our schools more than they are anywhere else during their waking hours. So it's really critical that schools have the tools that they need to be welcoming and affirming and can be supportive of all students. So we work with schools to help strengthen policies and procedures. We do a lot of staff training and student training and education and support. We help middle schools and high schools and a few K-8 establish gay, straight, trans alliances, which is a student club often looked at as a safe space in schools. We have studies that show that any school that has a gay, straight, trans alliance, regardless of how active it is, can help reduce bullying and harassment for all students by over 50%. So something that's really important to help change school climate and culture is having a gay, straight, trans alliance in the schools. And then we do a lot of consulting with administration and staff. And our fourth tier is about building a network of trained professionals across the state in local communities. And it's critical that our folks that are in local communities working with our LGBT youth have the tools and resources that they need. And so we do this through our training programs. We do a variety of regional trainings throughout the state. We also do a lot of individual and organizational trainings, both in person and over Zoom. And we are about ready to launch, which is one of the things we're going to show today, our new online self-paced training program, which is MaineCareerSpace.org. And you'll get to see a sneak peek of that a little bit. Actually, you're going to be the first folks to see a sneak peek of it. So I'm excited to have you be able to see that program. So our goal is really about changing the future for our LGBTQ youth. We're going to take a look today at our MaineCareerSpace.org online training platform. We're going to talk about charting a future for youth post-high school for the ages 16 to 22. We're going to talk a little bit about best practices for LGBT inclusive youth programming. And then we will also be sharing our new LGBT inclusive curriculum today. So these are some tools and programs that we have available that we wanted to share with everyone today, whether you are supporting LGBT youth or you are looking to expand the information that you have, or you have youth that you think might be in that age bracket where they're starting to think about what's life going to look like after high school, and what we might be able to do to help support them in that. So I'm going to turn the thing over here to Elizabeth, who from MCDPH. I'll let you introduce yourself, Elizabeth. They are the folks that have been helping us with our online training. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Sure. Thank you very much. And I'm Elizabeth Foley. I go she and her, and I am joined by two of my colleagues, Marissa White and Robin Hetzler. So you'll hear from Marissa in just a minute, but I really did want to thank Sue and you folks for inviting us to join today, where we've been had the privilege to partner with Maine to develop their online self-paced training, and it's very exciting for us. What I wanted to share just a snippet about who MCD is, because you would say, why is this organization working with Maine? And we're not just e-learning developers, but we have a strong footprint in public health and healthcare. And just to tell you a little bit about us. In fact, I was looking to see if I recognize any folks' names, because medical care development, which many of you may have heard of us, we've been here in Maine for 55 years. I can't believe it. I haven't been here for 55, but I've been here for over 17. So it's been pretty exciting. And we work with our state and local partners. We work with public health government. We work with health systems and really bringing resources, training, technical assistance to folks really working across the lifespan. And so just a little bit there on our mission statement. And I think, Sue, we can go to the next slide, showing a little bit of where we work locally, statewide, regionally, nationally. I say we work around the corner and we work around the country. Folks may have heard, if you're over in the mid-coast area, of Healthy Lincoln County, and we actually are the home of Healthy Lincoln County, who works across that county around youth substance use and actually food security and a number of different areas. We're the home of the WellStar Me program. So we oversee the actual wellness program for the state of Maine with approximately, I think, 30,000 employees that are eligible for that. And then we are home to the Northeast Telehealth Resource Centers, providing telehealth and technology to all of New England states and New York. And we're part of a national network of public health institutes. So we're one of 42 in the state. So just giving you a little bit of background in how we go about our work and how we got a chance to partner with Sue and the group in Maine. So the next slide, Sue. What we're really here to talk about is workforce development and our online trainings. One of the things that MCD has developed over the years is, and this was before we really needed to when the pandemic hit, but we were developing online tools and training for a number of different organizations and programs. We recently, Marissa, who you're going to hear from, developed the Winter Kids online training, and folks have probably, many of you have heard of Winter Kids program here in the state of Maine and supporting Maine and New Hampshire. We actually have developed the online training programs for the New York State Department of Health on all of their chronic disease prevention work. And we've also developed the stroke systems of care training program, online training program for the state of Massachusetts. And then recently we've developed an online community health worker training that focuses a lot on chronic conditions, but we have developed some really quickly put together some materials for the COVID basics and COVID vaccine. And Robin, who's with us, has worked with a number of folks, and we offer those in English, Spanish, Arabic, French. And so we really try to meet the audiences of what we need. So let's go to the next slide, because we really want to talk about, well, what are we here for in working with Maine? Well, we have the opportunity to develop, very excited to be part of the Maine online training program development. And that's, I think, enough about MCD, and I'm going to turn it over to Marissa, who is going to give you a preview of what the new self-paced online training looks like.
So I'm going to stop sharing and let you share, Marissa.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Sue. And hi, everyone. I'm Marissa White, a program assistant working on MCD's e-learning team. And as Elizabeth mentioned, my colleague and partner in crime, Robin here, all both worked on the team that developed these online training modules for Maine. And we're really excited to share that with you today. And we actually pulled together a quick little 1-minute video highlighting the importance of this training, who it applies to, and what is covered within the modules. So I will share that with you right now. Okay, so in developing this training, as you saw, we do use an animation software that allows us to create avatars and interactive videos like the one you just saw. The training was developed thoroughly with the LGBTQ community in mind. And for the basics package, which was the 6 interactive self-paced modules that you saw in that video, we did create 2 avatars that are actually based and inspired by real individuals and their journey. We are very fortunate to work with a wonderful family of voiceover actors who are actually connected with the LGBTQ plus community. And Rosie and Brian are the parents of 2 children, Zia and Elisa. Rosie and Zia are the 2 lead avatars that you saw in that slide right before I showed the video. And in the welcome module, they tell a bit more about their journey. So I'll play that short clip for you all too, so you can get a sense of our two main avatars.
Hi, I'm Rosie. I use she, her, hers.
And I'm Zia. I use he, him, his.
Welcome to OutMaine's training portal. We're here to guide you through this instruction as well as the other training modules.
Consider me your official OutMaine training guide.
And me, your official OutMaine training narrator.
I'll pop up from time to time, introduce you to some topics, and see how your learning is progressing.
And I'll explain topics in more detail to help deepen your understanding of the content. Before we get started, we will share a bit about ourselves and background. I'm a transplanted Latina woman from Puerto Rico, now in the Boston area. I'm a professional bilingual voiceover actor and Latin singer and percussionist, and I'm particularly passionate about improvisational singing. In 1996, I gave birth to identical twins, and I'm now the proud mom of a daughter, Alisa, and my transgender non-binary son, Zia.
I came out as trans and non-binary when I was 19. It was scary to take that step, but I'm so glad that I did. Now I'm an interdisciplinary artist, voice actor, and musician. Without the support of my family and my peers, it would have been a lot harder for me to thrive. I hope that these training modules can help you to understand and support the LGBTQ+ youth you work with.
Now let's get started by learning a bit about OutMaine's work and model.
So that gives you a little more context, and those animations and pieces of their journey are sprinkled throughout each of the trainings as well. So now that you have a good understanding of what the trainings provide and a little of its background, I'll do a quick walkthrough of the training platform itself. So when you go to MaineCareerSpace.org, this is the training site where you can explore what packages are available to purchase. And you can click here to see what modules are within each package and a little bit about what you'll learn in each module. And you'll see there are right here school-specific trainings coming soon. We are actually in development of those, and there will be 2 of those modules. And then there are some basic system requirements for the modules to display correctly. As long as the learner has module or a modern internet and browser, which like most people do these days, modules should work perfectly fine. And in addition, we do provide support and technical assistance to learners whenever they need help with either the training portal or the individual modules itself. Okay, so here up at the top is where the learner will log in, or if they don't have an account yet, they can go up to here to register, and they just fill out this form and it will go through to the payment, and then you'll have complete access. So once you log in, this is what it will look like. At the top here, this is the dashboard where all the packages that the learner has purchased will display. And so right now you see we have this basics package with the 6 modules, and we have a school specific coming soon. So you can either toggle to these 6 individual modules by clicking what I just clicked, or on the sidebar here, there's a navigation to get back to your dashboard or the package that you purchased. Okay. And then so here are the 6 different modules, and right now they're all open because I've already done the welcome module, but when you first sign in, it will be this one that is you're able to take, and these will be kind of grayed out just because this gives a little bit more context for the rest. But after that, the learner will have access to all of these and can do it in pretty much any order that they would like. So I will click on here and give you a look at what it looks like when you start a module. So this is what it looks like when you enter each module. There's a little menu on the side, and then you'll be able to like click over here, and that's like a next and previous button to go through each of the different sections. And then there are a few like nice features as well. So there's this resource button at the top where it outlines every single link and resource that is within each module. It's nicely put up here for easy access. There's also a play and pause button that I had already used to pause, as well as a repeat if you need to go over the same slides or section. There's also an audio volume button. And then when you do toggle to, let's say, a section where there's audio, a closed caption sign or a closed caption button will pop up where it will actually give you the subtitles right here. And then there's also a nice little settings button where you can change the zoom fit, also the accessibility of the text. Although we do already build them with that in mind, it does give like a little bit of a different look. And then there's like keyboard shortcuts that you can enable as well. So those are some of the main features that we have as well. And when the learner reaches the end of the module, there will be this button right here that they'll click on. And when you click on it, it'll bring you back to the dashboard. You can go back to the modules and this completed, it'll tell you what day you completed the module. And then this get certificate button will pop up. And you'll see with this one hasn't been completed. So it doesn't have that banner or button to get your certificate. And so when you click that, it'll come up with this nice printable, or you can save it to your desktop certificate of completion. So yeah, and that is a quick, brief walkthrough, and we are very excited and honored to have had this opportunity to develop these modules for Maine. And we're really looking forward to our upcoming work as well. So thank you, and we're happy to answer any questions now or offline if you have any.
Thank you much, Marissa. So as you can see, we've spent a lot of time the past year here working with MCD to take our training content that we have traditionally been doing for individual organizations and regionally across the state. And while we've trained 10,000 people over the last several years, we're hoping to train many more people, especially those that are in far outreaching areas, like many of you that are out on the islands and can't always get to a regional training or can't have us come, that we're really hoping that this will be a tool that will make it much easier for you to get the resources and the tools that you need. As Marissa said, the next set that they're working on is school specific. And then after that, we'll be doing some training modules that will be targeted towards mental health professionals and then eventually some healthcare professional training as well. So we're really looking to try to meet the needs of a lot of audiences of folks that work with LGBTQ youth and helping them have those tools and resources available when you need them. So if you have any questions, please, ask. You can ask now. We can ask things later if something comes up. The website MaineCareerSpace.org, I believe, is live. So you are the first folks to see it. The official announcement hasn't been made yet, but there will be announcements coming out shortly. And as new modules roll out, those will be available on the portal as well. And am I right, Marissa, that's live now?
Yes, it's officially live.
Excellent.
Both www. And if you didn't want to put the www, you can just put in MaineCareerSpace.org and it will also work.
And yeah, and there'll be a link off our website as well, if there isn't already. So thank you all. Those of you who are here from MCD PH, if you want to hang around for a few more minutes, you're welcome. If you have other things to do today, I hope you have a great weekend. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come in and share the work you've been doing with us, with all these folks. So this next piece that I wanted to talk a little bit about is what we're looking at around charting a future. What is life like for our youth after they get out of high school? As I mentioned earlier, our LGBTQ youth are at very high risk, and they get many of their supports in school, and then suddenly they graduate and they have no idea what they're going to do. And they lose a lot of their supports. So we have a program that we call our Emerging Leaders Program for our 16 to 22-year-olds. It does meet weekly to do a variety of things. They spend a lot of time talking about college and life skills. We are working with them on a variety of pieces of things that they need to know. They were just doing some work on writing resumes and filling out job applications, and some of that content just most recently. Part of the work that we do with them is helping them expand and advance their leadership skills as well. We often bring many of them into some of our weekend programs, such as our leadership retreats and Rainbow Ball as junior counselors, where they come back. For those junior counselors have to be out of high school, but they come back as mentors with some of our younger youth to help support and engage. And they also become amazing role models for some of our younger youth. And then we also have a post-secondary education support program. So we have a staff person that is our rural outreach coordinator, and she works with youth on a more one-on-one basis, helping them navigate some of the pieces of trying to figure out, is college something that is possible for them. If they're in a situation where, like, you know, they think it's so far out of reach because they don't have the finances for it. Maybe their families can't even begin to think about affording college. We work with the Maine Education Opportunity Center to help students look at different ways that they may be able to finance things, to get access to different types of resources and whatnot. And then one of the other things that I wanted to share that our Emerging Leaders Group is working on is they've been doing a monthly podcast program in conjunction with WERU Radio. So if you tune into WERU Radio on the first Thursday night of the month, you'll hear the LGBT Tea Time with Chuck podcast that the youth have developed and put on. And if you wanted to listen to any of their podcasts, they have done some pieces on coming out stories and some things on gender identity. And so these are another way for them to share their voices and begin to feel empowered in who they are. So if you have any youth that are in that age range that are beginning to think about, you know, they're still in high school, but they're moving out, or maybe you've got youth you're working with that are already out of high school, but they're still trying to figure some things out, you know, please encourage them to consider engaging in this program, because you know, we find that sometimes these youth need a lot of extra support, and we're really trying hard to help have those resources and tools available to support them in that work. And then the next piece I wanted to talk about is our best practices for LGBT inclusive youth programming. This is a guide that we have developed to help organizations that work with LGBT youth to become more inclusive. And so within this guide, we talk about if you have registration processes, what do you do about safe and accessible bathrooms? We cover inclusive language and signage, looking at affirming and inclusive facilitation and curricula if you have programming, looking at inclusive policies. Having inclusive policies is really critical, whether we are thinking about youth or we're talking about you know, workforce policies as well. So we have a piece on workforce policies, procedures, and then making sure that staff are trained in these policies and procedures, and they know what they should be doing to help support our youth, as well as making sure that you have a welcoming and inclusive workplace. For residential programs, we have a piece on safe and gender affirming sleeping arrangements. We do a small piece on terminology and sample forms. This guide is available on our website under the Maine resources, and when you come into it, it will allow you to download the guide. I think we collect a small amount of information, name, email, maybe, but then the guide will give you all of that information that we've talked about here. And so if you have questions, if you take a look at this guide and it's something that you want to be able to use, and you have questions with it, then don't hesitate to give us a shout. We'd be happy to answer any questions or help you navigate things as you're trying to figure it out. Often organizations will find that they really want to be more inclusive, and sometimes they struggle with putting those practices into action. And so part of the work that we do is to try to help you navigate those processes as you're thinking about that. And then our last piece today that I wanted to share with you is our new LGBT inclusive curriculum that we've developed this year. So this curriculum was developed to really be as a supplemental curriculum for educators. It is something that has been designed to be a supplement to the second step curriculum, which is a social emotional learning curriculum that a lot of schools use. And it is also, we've gone through the process of making sure that it's aligned to the academic standards for the Maine learning results. So it's broken down. It is a K12 curriculum, but it's broken down based on varying grade levels. So the K2 Inclusive Curriculum focuses on self-awareness, diverse families, the impact of gender and of gender stereotypes. And so when you, again, this is also available on our website. And when you take a look at it, whoops, jumped on me. When you take a look at it, it will take you in and give you a little bit of an introduction around what the curriculum is, and then it will take you into each of the sections of the curriculum. And so, for example, this is a kindergarten curriculum. The unit 2 is tied back to the second step curriculum, but then here it will tell you that this is about diversity. And then each of these areas will show you what the objective of that is. So in this case, the objective is awareness that we can be our own unique selves. And then underneath that, it will give us a couple of examples with all of the information that we need to be able to use those activities within a classroom. So for example, here, this is the objective is awareness that there are a lot of different types of families. And if we look at this first lesson of what makes a family, each lesson is broken down based on the grade level. It'll give you the amount of information that you need for how many sessions it will take, how long each session will be. There'll be an overview for the activity itself. It'll tell you any of the materials that you need, what the objectives are for the students, why and when to teach the lesson. If you have any, what the essential questions are that you might want to make sure that you're discussing and talking about to get the key points across to students. This one here has an art activity, so it gives you what to do with the art activity, and then at the bottom it identifies the academic standards that it meets for the Maine learning results. So with each of these activities, or each of these grade levels, the grade 3 to 5 teaches about diverse families, unique selves, gender stereotypes, accepting differences, empathy and respect, emotional management, and self-expression. And it's laid out the exact same way. Grades 6 to 8 educates about managing your emotions, self-expression, managing relationships and social conflict, LGBT history, diverse families, gender stereotypes, positive self-talk, gender discrimination, and Title IX and gender bias. And then the high school, the 9 to 12, then builds upon what they've learned in the other grade levels, and builds on focuses on building trust, managing stress, advancing equity, and developing I can't say that today, efficacy. And so with each of these, our hope is that it will provide additional content and resources for educators to be able to really begin to have more inclusive curriculum within their classrooms. So the goal here is for this to be supplemental material that can be used in any classroom. As I said, it's been designed to supplement the second step curriculum, which I know a lot of guidance curriculum uses the second step. But in addition to that, all of this curriculum has been designed for any educator to use in any classroom setting. And so we're, sharing this out, having people use it. We've had lots of good feedback already from it. But as folks use it, our hope is that people will provide us some feedback if there are things that they're still looking for, if this has been helpful for them, and what else it is that we can do to help make their jobs easier as they're supporting their youth. Because as we know, our youth are in schools, and this is where we really want them to be able to thrive and shine. So I have a brief video here of some youth sharing some stories that I thought you might enjoy.
Without groups like Maine, programs like the retreat, or going to different schools to train teachers and counselors wouldn't be possible. I think it's great to see younger kids in the LGBTQ population, working on their leadership skills and trying to understand more about themselves and how they can help their schools and communities.
A lot of people have those safe space stickers up. Those I find are a bit redundant, at least in my school, because a lot of the teachers and adults there don't actually make it a safe space. So making it known that you are supportive is also a very good thing to do.
Just on the mat is the bag. The skirt is on the PA class.
About not being comfortable with my body, don't be like, oh, I'm sorry, that sucks. Be like, oh, it's okay though, body positivity. I think that my mom is definitely one of my strongest advocates, and it's always nice to always hear them introduce me as their son, because it gives me validation. When I come out to someone, I do not want them to say, oh, I tolerate you. I get that so often. So rather than saying that you tolerate me, say that you accept me, say that you support me, and actually do those things. There's a lot of miseducation or no education about subjects dealing with transgender people. More information would be really great, and that's what Maine is trying to do. At least 8 times today, I must have said the wrong pronouns for someone, and every single time I've apologized immensely, because I just feel awful not being able to give that back, not being able to give that feeling back. When somebody uses that pronoun, you have to stop and bask in the fact that you are valid, you're real. Somebody else, a living human being, accepts what you are. One more person on the earth not only knows who you are, but accepts you enough to call you that. And that's like a dream, man.
I always find the voices of our youth so very powerful. So, our Maine's initiatives for supporting youth and building welcoming and affirming communities, we have an ambitious goal to create more welcoming and affirming communities for Maine's diverse queer youth in all of their intersectional identities. by changing the very systems that serve them. And we are hoping to continue to develop more tools and resources for all of you that are working with our LGBT youth. Our goals with some of these tools that I've shared today is to really try to provide resources to those of you who are out in such far-reaching regions and can't always get easy access to content and materials and programming. And so we've, transitioned and put so much more online, our weekly youth programming, and, now our training programs will be accessible when you need them. And then we continue to build out best practice guides and other resources and tools to try to help you all do the good work that you are doing. So this is my contact information. That is the content I've got for you today. I just wanted to come and share some of the resources and things that we have that folks don't always know that we have available for them. And I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. And if not, then, thank you so much for coming today and being here with us.
There's two questions in the chat. One is, how is the best practice guide different or similar to resources from national organizations such as GLSEN?
Well, the GLSEN information is directly related to schools and is at a very national level. The best practices guide that we've developed has a lot of very Maine specific information in it that is related to content that's directly about Maine and is also geared towards youth serving organizations versus school specific.
Cool, thanks, Sue. And the second question is if there's any templates for a letter or information to send home to guardians before starting the lessons.
That is a great question. And what we have found that a lot of schools are doing is integrating it into the curriculum and only notifying parents about it if they notify parents about other curriculum. So if you are notifying parents about other curriculum that you are delivering, then whatever method you do for that. If not, then I would not encourage you to necessarily send something home about this curriculum, because it's another piece of curriculum and content that's being integrated into the throughout curriculum within the state. Oh, and one other piece that I didn't share because it's not ours today, but I do want to mention it, is that the Maine Department of Education has just launched a new website for resources and content for supporting LGBT students. So if you haven't seen that already, please do go to the DOE website in August. Can you see if you can grab that website and stick it in the chat, because that has a lot of really good resources as well for students and parents and schools on a variety of resources. And they're very excited about having just launched it and are looking for input and feedback on that as well. Thanks, August. Other questions that folks have?
Thanks, Sue. I'm gonna jump in here if that's okay. I had asked the question about the parent letter. So if there were pushback from parents, how, I'm new to Maine, so I'm not really sure whether legally speaking, schools have the right or the expectation to provide this type of.
They do actually, and that's part of the information that which is what made me think about sharing about the DOE's website. DOE's stance is that we need to be supporting all students, and we have laws here in the state that talk about the need for inclusion in schools and about LGBT student rights in schools. And so that's why a lot of schools are beginning to integrate inclusive curriculum into what they teach on a regular basis, because it's part of what, we're raising students to live in a very diverse world, and it's really important that all of our students can feel safe in schools. And if you look at the content that's developed, it's all very, it's based very age appropriate, at the kindergarten, first, second grade, you're talking about things that are about inclusion. And, really beginning to build some empathy for students. And as they get older, then they're delving into more detailed information. But and might you get pushback on something? Sure. We live in a very rural, conservative places and at times, some of our communities, but we're also finding that when we have 20% of our student population that identify, and we're working with students that are at such high risk, we need to be supportive and we need to be educating folks. I think you're still on. Oh yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you clarifying that. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Let's see, what are effective ways of communicating that you are an ally to youth who have yet to come out to their families or in their community? As August said, great question. And there are many ways. Absolutely, one of the first things you should think about doing is sharing your own pronouns, and also asking students. So, when you introduce yourself, hi, my name is Sue and my pronouns are she, her. What name and pronouns would you like me to use for you? If you if you're on Zoom like we are today, put your pronouns in your name. I see several of you already have your pronouns there. If you have email, add your pronouns to your email there. If you are in a setting where you have young people that are coming in, whether it's a classroom or an office, consider the content and the materials that you have available. Do you have maybe a safe space sticker up in your classroom? Do you have posters or other resource materials that would immediately say to somebody, oh, hey, like that's an LGBT sticker or a poster. They must understand. It's those kinds of things that are really simple ways to signal so that they can be willing to share. And then once they do, as August said here in the chat, follow their lead. Ask them what name they want you to use. Ask them what name they want you to use around their parents. If they aren't out at home, they aren't going to necessarily want you to use that name at home. And you definitely want to be really careful to not out a student because you don't know what the situation might be at home. And so you want to be supportive. Our goal is to always get students to a place where they can talk with their parents and that their parents can be supportive. In an ideal world, all parents would be loving and supportive of their children, but we also know that that's not always the reality, as sad as that is. And so we want to be able to support our students in whatever reality it is that they're living in. Our responsibility is to the student when they're at school, and to support them. And we have the laws and the best practices that tell us that is what we need to be doing for our students. But yeah, absolutely follow their lead. Figure out if they are, what names that they're using, whether it's in school or at home, and what name it is that you should be using when you're talking with parents, and making sure that you aren't outing them by sharing that information without their permission. Absolutely. Other questions or comments? Maybe what brought you here today? Because I bet it wasn't about what was on my slides, because you had no idea what was going to be on my slides.
I have a question, and it is somewhat related to what August just put in the chat about making sure LGBTQ issues are woven into all curriculum, including LGBTQ history and history class, talk about the singular they in language arts class, etc. And I appreciate those examples as it's part of history, it's part of language and how language evolves. And I guess I know when I was teaching, I would make an effort with highlighting identities that, women, people of color, that if you show a photo of who the person is, you don't even need to say anything about their identity, or you can, it depends on the group, right? But there's visible identities and non-visible identities. And so I really liked the ideas that you shared, August. And I'm also wondering, if you are highlighting someone, if I want to say this is an incredible scientist who happens to be queer. Like, that's not relevant, right? Like, I mean, maybe it is, but it's not like, that's what I'm trying, guess what I'm trying to ask is
Sure.
like,
So, I mean,
this is a straight scientist, but then, yeah, so anyway.
Well, it's a piece of, I think it's a piece of what, you know, it's part of that whole teaching diversity across multiple intersectional identities, right? So like we're here talking about LGBT identities today, but what I'm saying to you is, yeah, I want you to teach about LGBT. I also want you to teach about different cultures and different races and other identities, because all of it's important and relevant. And the more of all of it we teach, the less any one of it is something that is suddenly like, well, why are you teaching about that? I mean, we live in a very diverse world. Our young people are going to be living in a more diverse world than we live in. And we need to be helping them learn about all of these things. I mean, I think back about my education and all of the people in history that I learned about and had no idea about anything about them as human beings, right? And so to have, if you're teaching about a scientist, learn a little bit about the scientist, not just what did the scientist do in this one thing that made them so amazing, but what about the scientist as who the scientist is as a human being. And if the scientist, if part of that scientist's identity was the fact that he's part of that scientist is part of the queer community, that's a relevant piece, right? Because you're teaching not just about this one topic, but about who these people are as a whole. I mean, our world has arrived at where it is because of the many people that have been here before us and the people who are here today and all of the things that make them human, right? And so that's really is what, you know, when we can lift up everyone, you know, then lift people up, it's going to lift up everyone, right? And so, you know, the idea of teaching about, you know, who these people are as humans and what their lives are might make that whole like science lesson a whole lot more interesting too, right? Because they get to learn about not just one thing. Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I think part of my question was rooted in like hearing at other times when people say like, you shouldn't need to say that just to say that specific thing about their identity. But I think it's an opportunity as educators to just bring to light that these are identities and they are good and there are more people and they contribute, like, you know, we're all here. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And also like, I mean, to learn about like other aspects of their lives. I mean, they may have other things that are parts of their lives that were also really relevant and important. And sometimes it also helps when students can learn more than just a fact about something. It also sometimes helps them learn and remember that content better because it becomes more interesting and more diverse.
I don't think I could have said any of that better than Sue, but the thing I want to add to that is also that as someone in my mid-30s, I'm now learning that so many of these like figures that I learned about when I was in elementary school and middle school and high school were actually queer in whatever way that they were, whatever words that they use, and that was never given any space in understanding them. And I'm just learning that all these like famous scientists and writers and musicians, you know, all these people that are kind of like the pillars of our society were not straight. And so then just like incorporating it, it's okay to incorporate their personal lives and their identities into our understanding. And the where it can be tricky is like using word, like what, because they might not have identified as transgender because that wasn't a word then. They might not have identified as queer because that wasn't a word then, you know, necessarily. But to say that they had, well, how many times do we read through history and like, she lived with her had a warm, loving relationship with her roommate for 40 years, you know, like we know what that means now. Like we know that what was going on, like we can name it now, you know, right. And we should name it now.
And I mean, and the other piece to go with that, which I think you were aiming towards, Robin, is that this also gives, you know, our LGBT youth the opportunity to see these people in history as role models. You know, because I mean, I'm with August, like I never learned any, like there was never any space for that. And had there been, you know, it'll give students the opportunity to see themselves in history and see themselves in what they're learning. And that's really important. So other thoughts, questions?
I mean, I take it you'd still promote doing things like Pride Month and you know,
Always.
Day of Silence and so
Sure.
on.
Yeah, I mean, any of that stuff is all fine. It's a matter of figuring out which of the pieces of it all work. And the more that you can make it seamless throughout, then yeah. I mean, there are other days of things that we you know, celebrate and share and do activities around. You know, I also, you know, I think that you know, the library should put up displays periodically with various books and contents throughout the year, because that's also another great way to get stuff out in front of students.